It started like any other day. Nothing unusual, nothing dramatic, just another simple update, one that viewers have come to expect, one that usually brings comfort, familiarity, and a sense of connection. The kind of update people play in the background while making coffee or quietly watch at the end of a long day. But today was different, not in a loud or obvious way. There was no breaking headline, no shocking announcement, no sudden interruption. Instead, it was something much quieter, something subtle, something that slowly unfolded, and once it did, it stayed with everyone watching. At first, everything felt normal. The tone was calm, the conversation flowed naturally, there was warmth in the way the family interacted, something viewers have always appreciated. These are the moments people come back for. The laughter, the shared glances, the sense that even through a screen, something real is being shared. Nothing felt out of place. But then, something shifted. It wasn't a dramatic pause. It wasn't even something most people would notice right away. But for those paying close attention, it was there. A slight change in tone, a softer response than usual. A pause that lasted just a second longer than expected. And suddenly, the energy in the room felt different. Not uncomfortable, not tense, just emotional. What made this moment powerful wasn't what was said, it was what wasn't. Sometimes the most meaningful emotions don't come through words, they come through silence, through expressions, through the way someone looks away for just a second, or takes a quiet breath before continuing. And that's exactly what happened. Viewers began to notice. Comments started appearing almost immediately. Did anyone else feel that? Something felt different today. That moment really stayed with me. Because it did. It stayed. There's something unique about live or unscripted family updates. They aren't perfect. They aren't always polished. But that's what makes them real. And today, reality showed itself in the most unexpected way. The conversation continued, but the tone had changed. There was more softness, more reflection, less performance, and more presence. It felt like, for just a moment, the cameras faded into the background and something genuine came through. No one said anything dramatic, no one explained the shift, and maybe that's why it felt so powerful. Because viewers weren't told how to feel, they simply felt it. There was a quiet, emotional undercurrent, something unspoken, but deeply understood. It reminded people of their own lives, their own families, their own moments where everything seems normal on the surface, but underneath, there's something more. In a world full of loud headlines and constant noise, moments like this stand out. Not because they're big, but because they're real. People don't always connect with perfection. They connect with honesty, with vulnerability, with those small, fleeting moments that remind us we're all human. And today's update had exactly that, a brief, quiet glimpse into something deeper. The power of subtle emotion. It's easy to overlook small moments, to move on quickly, to wait for something bigger, louder, more obvious. But sometimes those small moments are the ones that matter most. The slight pause, the softened tone, the look that says more than words ever could. These are the moments that stay with us, not because they were planned, but because they weren't. What made this moment even more special was how many people felt it at the same time. Different viewers, different places, different lives. Yet somehow, they all connected to the same quiet shift. That's the power of emotional storytelling. Even when nothing is explained, everything is understood. Not every story needs words. We often expect stories to be clear, to have a beginning, middle, and end, to be explained. But real life doesn't always work that way. Sometimes the most meaningful stories are the ones that aren't fully told. They're felt, They're experienced, and they leave just enough space for each person to interpret them in their own way. Today was one of those moments. Maybe it was just a pause. Maybe it was just a small shift in tone. Or maybe it was something more. A reminder that behind every update, every conversation, every shared moment, there are real emotions, real people, real experiences. And sometimes those emotions find their way through, unexpectedly, quietly, and beautifully. In the end, nothing dramatic happened. There was no big reveal, no shocking twist, just a moment, a small, quiet, unexpected moment that changed the way everything felt. And maybe that's why it mattered so much, because in that brief second, viewers didn't just watch, they noticed, they paused, they felt. And long after the update ended, that feeling stayed with them. Next time you sit down to watch a simple family update, you might think you already know what to expect. A few smiles, a few light conversations, maybe a laugh or two. Something easy, something familiar. But what today reminded us is this: not every moment announces itself. Not every emotion comes with words. Sometimes the most powerful feelings arrive quietly, almost unnoticed at first. A pause that feels just a little longer than usual. A look that lingers for a second too long. A voice that softens without explanation. And if you're really paying attention, you feel it. That subtle shift. That moment where everything changes, even if nothing obvious actually did. Because real life doesn't follow a script. It doesn't wait for perfect timing. It doesn't always explain itself. And that's exactly why moments like this matter so much. They remind us that behind every smile, there can be a story. Behind every calm conversation, there can be emotion. And behind every normal update, there can be something deeper, something real, something human. Today wasn't about a big reveal. It wasn't about headlines or dramatic twists. It was about a feeling, a quiet, unexpected feeling that reached through the screen and connected with people in a way that words simply couldn't. And maybe that's why so many viewers paused, why they replayed that moment, why they couldn't quite explain it, but couldn't ignore it either. Because it felt familiar, not in what happened, but in what it meant. We've all had moments like that. Moments where everything seems fine on the surface, but underneath there's something more, something unspoken, something real. And when we see it, even for a second, we recognize it instantly. That's the power of these quiet moments. They don't need to be loud to be meaningful. They don't need to be explained to be understood. They just need to be felt. So next time you watch, don't just focus on what's being said. Pay attention to what isn't. The silence, the pauses, the energy that shifts without warning. Because sometimes, those are the moments that stay with you the longest. Not because they were dramatic, but because they were honest. And in a world full of noise, headlines, and constant distraction, honesty stands out, even in its quietest form. And maybe that's what makes moments like this unforgettable. Not the words, not the setting, not even the people, but the feeling they leave behind. A feeling that lingers long after the screen fades to black.